a rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beautiful land, but the beauty a rich man's world. I have turned the soul of
What is up, fantasy football fools? We are back again with the ever-anticipated draft recap pod. Pretty crazy draft night. It was a good day. Hopefully for everybody. Hopefully everyone likes their team. We're gonna start with yours here, but what was your overall consensus of the team you drafted?
I like my team. I went into a plan with just trying to stack up on wide receivers and hopefully some running backs fell to me. The running backs really didn't fall to me, but I kind of panicked, picked Breece Hall because I needed a running back after my first 3 picks. I'm not crazy about the running backs, but I love everything else about my team. The wide receiving core has to be probably the best in the league, I would think, with Stephon Diggs and Brown and Keenan Allen. We'll go through everyone's team. I'll see who I think is maybe better than that. I know Chewy's got 2 big dogs with Devontae Adams and Cooper Kupp, but I love my team. I think they're going to do well. I gotta wait till Breece Hall kind of gets ramped up a little bit more. But if he stays healthy and by about week 4 or 5, I'm thinking he is going to be who we saw last year before he got injured. And then if that happens, I think my team is very good. And the running back too will just kind of figure itself out. I got a couple bench RBs that can take that spot if Antonio Gibson goes down or just sucks. But I like my team. What do you think about my team, Ryan?
I thought it was a pretty solid team. I think probably somewhere in the middle of the pack. I think that's where you were at on the draft analysis thing from the Roto. But no, I think you got some solid pieces to build around. Yeah, I think running backs is probably your weak spot, but still not terrible. Antonio Gibson, a lot of work out of the backfield in the passing game, so could benefit us now with full point PPR or benefit you with full point PPR. Breece Hall, like you said, he's either going to come back from the injury and just go back to his old self or come back from the injury and it's going to totally put him on a downhill trajectory from where he was. So just kind of gonna have to wait and see where that one goes. But you've got a couple pieces on the bench there. I know you got Charbonnet, who I was really trying to get, and you snaked him from me a couple picks before I was gonna get him.
Yep.
But yeah, I think definitely a solid team. You got a little bit of depth here. I like the Zay Flowers pick. That was another guy that you stole from me right before I was about to get him. I guess got to learn to reach a little bit harder for some of these guys. And I think, honestly, DeAndre Hopkins, he fell a little bit. I don't think anybody was really wanting him, but, I mean, he could turn out to be pretty solid too. So the receiving core here is real tight. And Trevor Lawrence at QB remains to be seen if we're going to see a Trevor Lawrence from last year or the Trevor Lawrence from the couple years prior.
Yeah, one of my goals was wide receiver heavy, of course, and then one of my goals was to get one of the top 7 quarterbacks. I'm usually waiting for quarterbacks, and I usually just kind of pick from the scraps at the end. But I really wanted a top 7 quarterback. I know Chris sniped Justin Fields' pick right before I was going to pick him. And then Josh Allen was actually falling a little bit too. And I don't know who got him. I think Chewy got him maybe 3 or 4 picks before I was about to pull the trigger. I wasn't thinking I was going to get Josh Allen, but he was falling a little bit more than I thought he would. But I ended up with Trevor Lawrence. I reached for him because he was my 7th QB. I wanted, like I said, my top 7 at least. So I'm excited to have a QB that I can just plug and play. He's probably an every week quarterback unless he really falls off. But yeah, we'll see how this goes.
I think they had your record same as mine. Prediction was 7-6, make the playoffs, and lose in the first round.
Yep.
So we'll see how accurate that is.
It was funny. Nobody on our team got winning a championship. I think the 2 best teams was Jeff and Chewy, and they both are losing in the finals.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I thought that was funny. So hopefully that means that the league's wide open this year. So we'll get into team number 2 here, which is Dom. What do you think of Big Dom's team?
Yeah, I texted him probably the day after, and you could have saw in my write-up today who his league winner was or is, and it's the Cincinnati Bengals. It's just that whole offense. He picked Burrow, Mixon, and Jamar Chase. I think he really wanted Burrow for Jamar Chase because I think he left Justin Fields on the board, and I don't know. Those are two really close quarterbacks. I would have probably picked Fields, but since he has Jamar Chase, I probably would have picked Burrow if I was him. But I know Mixon fell in the draft. He was falling at least 5, 6, 7 spots where ESPN had him. And I think he probably fell a couple more spots really from the 7 that I just said, because I was ready to pick him up too because I didn't think he would fall as much. But Dom scooped him up. I don't know if he realized he had 3 Bengals after or he just thought Mixon was falling too much. He had to do it. But it's a good offense to have 3 guys. It's one of the top 5 offenses in the league. So I don't think it's going to kill him. But it's just weird to see all that. And luckily for me, I have him when the Cincinnati Bengals have a bye. So I'm actually really excited that Dom got these 3 guys.
His team is definitely relying on in the hands of that Bengals offense. Hopefully he'll see Joe Burrow start week 1. That's kind of still a little bit up in the air, but it sounds like he's trending towards playing, so that'll be good for him. I mean, they're all 3 of those guys are good picks for sure, but maybe not ideal to have them all on the same team,
Right.
just mixing the running back and the receiver. I think the Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase stack is going to be solid, and who knows, maybe he's got Joe Mixon as a trade piece if he wants to maybe hedge his bet a little bit and get away from having all Bengals or at least all the position players. But I still think it's overall a good team. I already hit Dom up for a trade today. I won't say what it was, but got denied. But I do like his team. His receivers are really good. I think Kyle Pitts is going to have a decent season depending on, how that offense shakes out in Atlanta. They're going to be pretty dog shit, but I still think Kyle Pitts will see a lot of targets. So with full point PPR, I think that's a good pick. The thing I don't like about his team is J.K. Dobbins. I was not high on him. That's a biased opinion, certainly. But, that guy can't stay healthy. And even when he is, I don't feel like he's shown that he's an elite back. He probably got him at a good spot where it could turn into some value, but that flex spot might be his shakiest. But I think overall this is a solid team. I like James Conner too in the RB2 position. I was going to try and get him, but he didn't quite fall to where I needed him to.
Yeah, he actually reached for J.K. Dobbins a little bit because he took him a little earlier than I was going to take him, and I actually was going to reach for him with my 0 running back strategy. He was a good guy in the later rounds that I was trying to nab. So I think J.K. was drafted around the 80th spot, and I think Dom picked him up in the late 60s. I think that one guy I really wanted was Jordan Addison. This guy I think is going to have a really monster year. I was going to pick Jordan Addison as my rookie wide receiver, but Dom took him, so I went Zay Flowers instead. I wanted one of those rookie wide receivers, but I really wanted Jordan Addison. I think he's going to be a really good wide receiver, 2 for the Vikings, a little Adam Thielen role. That's probably my favorite pick of this team right here.
Wow, favorite pick.
Yeah.
I think the Jaylen Warren pick's pretty solid too. If anything happens to Najee, Jaylen Warren gets plugged in there. And I even think with Najee, Jaylen Warren might see a little bit more out of the backfield in the passing game. So I think that could be a solid backup for him. But yeah, I think overall this is a pretty good team.
Yeah, I was really low on Kyle Pitts. I know Kyle Pitts, Dallas Goedert, and Kittle were all in that little grouping of tight ends that I wanted or I was going to draft. And luckily, I didn't end up with Pitts because I was going to pick one of those 3. I was the lowest on Pitts. But that's pretty much just because the offense and that Falcons team is just going to run the ball to death, I think.
Yeah, they're going to run Bijan into the ground probably.
Yep. That's why I have Tyler Algier as my handcuffed to somebody I don't even have. But we will go to Jeff's team, the defending champion Jeffrey Wilson, World of Hurts. What do you think about Jeff's team?
Well, this is according to the Roto Team Grader. This is the favorite of the league. Jeff, in terms of statistical, whatever they use for their statistical analysis, this turned out to be the greatest team. I think he had the highest percentage to win, or maybe that was to make the playoffs. But nonetheless, they thought this was the best team, and they're not far off. This is a pretty good team. Dalvin Cook in the RB2 spot might be a little shaky, but everything else here is pretty solid. He does have a couple Qs, but I think both of those guys are trending towards playing as far as what I've heard most recently. You can't go wrong with Mark Andrews at tight end. Terry Mack, I mean, that's a solid pick. I had him last year. He's pretty good. He'd be really good in full point PPR too. He gets a lot of receptions. I think AJ Brown in that Philly offense. He's got the stack with Jalen Hurts. I mean, pretty good team. Derrick Henry felt what Jeff had picked 10. He got Derrick Henry at 10.
Yep.
So I think that'll be a pretty good value. Got some pretty good pieces on the bench, but maybe not super deep. I don't like Devin Singletary at all, but I did like Jacoby Myers. I think Michael Thomas might have a bounce back year, and Zeke might be a pretty good handcuff too. So he's got a little bit of depth on the bench, and the starting team here is pretty solid. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like it. I wasn't really high on AJ Brown, but I mean, I wasn't going to pass him if he was there in the second round. He was probably my lowest rated second round receiver, at least one of my lowest rating second rounders. I never really liked Scary Terry. Again, probably just that offense, and I think Jahan Dotson is going to be in for a really big year. So I'm not in love with this team as much as you are. I wouldn't say you're in love with it, but I don't like it as much as you do. I think Chris Godwin's going to be a sneaky pick, though, with Mike Evans possibly sitting and getting traded soon. So that could be a really good value pick. I think he got him in like the 5th round, maybe? Yeah, 5th round. So that's a really good wide receiver for a 5th round. Pretty much the only wide receiver on that team if Mike Evans does get traded. I wasn't touching Derrick Henry this year, but that could probably bite me in the face like it does every year. But I think with full point PPR, I was staying away unless he made it to me in the second round. Then I would have nabbed him. But first round pick, I don't like him. I don't like that value as much as others would probably do. But I do love the AJ Brown Jalen Hurts stack. That we're going to see a couple stacks this year. I think the one we just saw with Dom, this one, Lubasi has a small one. I don't know if anyone else has one, but I guess we'll find out. But just three stacks already that I know of, so that's going to be pretty big. I always try to stack, but it's always hard to stack with good people. But we got a lot of good stacks this year.
Yeah, we'll definitely see how those play out. But yeah, I think this is a solid team.
All right, we will go to the next team, the misogynists.
Because he has Deshaun Watson.
I get it. There we go. I was looking at our game the whole day today. I was like, what does this mean right now? But now I get it with Deshaun Watson. Okay. All right. So this
Actually
is
pretty clever.
Jimmy had, I think, the worst record last year. One of the worst records last year.
He was down there.
He was down there. So do you think this team – well, this team definitely gets him probably farther than he was last year. But does he get it to him? Does this team get him to the playoffs?
I think he's got a shot at the playoffs, but I also think there is definitely some potential for floppage here. Just a few guys like the Jamal Williams play. I get that for the first few weeks, and he's got Kamara on the bench, so he's obviously playing into that Saints backfield. But I just don't know. I don't think anybody knows really what that Saints offense is going to look like this year. They got the new coach, they got the new quarterback. It's just, I don't know. I feel like it's going to be a lot different. And he's got the Saints tight end. Big on the Saints. Jimmy is big on the Saints this year. I like the Devontae Smith pick. I think him and Eckler are probably my two favorites on this team. Deshaun Watson, I mean, we just don't know what to expect out of that guy. I mean, he's shown that he can be an elite quarterback, but then all the shit went down and he looked pretty terrible last year. So what Deshaun Watson are we going to see? Are the old Deshaun Watson days gone, or did he just have one off year? I don't know. So I don't love that pick, but it also has, I think, high upside. It's just it's a risky play there, but it could work out. We do have another stack here. He's got Amari Cooper in the flex. And I wasn't super high on Amari Cooper this year just because of how poorly Deshaun Watson played, but also, on the other hand, Amari Cooper had a really good season last year, too, even in spite of that. So that could play out well for him. But I just like the Saints offense, the Browns offense. There's a lot of unknowns there. So I kind of go a little bit both ways on this team. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's weird that he's got two guys from, I would say, average offenses. And again, Saints, we don't even know what their offense is going to be, but it should be good with Derek Carr, at least better than last year. And then when Kamara comes back, it would be even better. But Alvin really didn't have a good year last year. I don't really know if that is a home run pick. He got him in what, the 5th round, 4th round?
Yeah, I don't think it's a home run pick, but the value for the
value's
potential
there.
was pretty good there. I mean, he's gonna miss 3 games,
Yep.
and I don't know. Like I said, I just don't know how the Saints are gonna run that offense. Are they gonna be pass? I guess even if they are pass heavy though, that bodes well for Kamara too. So yeah, that could end up being a really great value pick, or like I said, or it could be a flop.
Yeah, I like CD Lamb. I liked him this year. I think he's gonna have another good year in Dallas. He had a great year last year. I was hoping that I could maybe get him with the 2nd round pick, but Jimmy got him early 2nd. I'm not mad at Amon-Ra St. Brown, but CD Lamb was pretty high on my list. I think he's due for another breakout year. I think this is his 3rd year in the league, or maybe 4th. He's gonna probably take
Maybe
another
4th.
step. And Devontae Smith, 3rd year. I think he's the 3rd year, right?
Yes.
So he had a really good 2nd year last year, kind of elevated himself, but there's still a lot of mouths to feed in that offense. And if Eagles keep blowing people out, they're not going to throw in the 4th quarter like last year. So we'll see. They do have one of the toughest schedules this year. I think the Eagles have like the 2nd or 3rd toughest schedule this year. So they should be closer games, which bodes well for the Eagle offense. So I guess we'll see. I do like Jimmy's team. I like the Eckler pick, and I like his number 1 receiver. And we just got to see what the Saints do. If the Saints have a really good year, that this team could really, really do some damage.
Saints and the Browns. Don't forget about the Browns. They're gonna have a good year too. So his stakes are kind of in the hands of a couple teams there. Stacked up a few players from both. So I do think on paper though, Jimmy's team is at least set up better to make a better run, or set up to make a better run than he made last year.
I agree with that. So then we'll go to Chris's team. Chris always seems to have a really strong team. How are you liking Chris's team this year?
I don't think Chris's team is. I don't know. Like anyone's is super bad. I definitely don't think this is a bad team. I think there's just a couple people that I was not high on Mike Williams this year. I don't know why. I'm just never high on Mike Williams. I just never view him as like a legit wide receiver too. But that's what he is in that offense, unless Johnston passes him up. But I like the Justin Fields pick, obviously. That's my guy. I actually went Justin Herbert over Justin Fields, pick or two right before Chris. I was trying to play with my head this year, not with my heart. So I went there, but I do love the Justin Fields play. I think he's going to have a superb season. I mean, that Bears offense is just going to be firing on all cylinders. Bijan Robinson, obviously a rookie, but everybody's been high on him all offseason, preseason. I mean, they're talking about this guy being just a superstar right out of the gates, but it's just his workload. I think it's possible that it gets way too heavy, and they just, like I said, run him into the ground. So that one remains to be seen, but I still like the pick. Josh Jacobs signed his new deal. I think that should play out well for him here. Don't love his tight end. Deebo Samuel's kind of been on the rocks of like where people stood on his value this year. No one's really sure what's going to happen in that offense either. I liked T. Higgins' pick. I had him last year, and he's solid. So, I mean, really, overall, I think a pretty solid team. What do you think?
Yeah, he went heavy on the running backs. First 2 picks for running backs. We said in the draft room on Saturday or Sunday, whenever we drafted Sunday, that he has a wide receiver room full of just wide receiver 2s, which isn't bad, isn't good. I know Deebo Samuel is a wide receiver 1 in his offense, but he hasn't played that well last year to call him a wide receiver 1 in like fantasy football perspective. But if he does come back to his form a couple years ago, I think this team could be an elite team. T. Higgins is a really good receiver, just number 2 with Jamar Chase there. He did spend a really big round on Jonathan Taylor, who may or may not play this year. He spent a 7th round pick. I don't think I was touching Jonathan Taylor at all, even if, I mean, maybe in the 10th, 11th round, but I don't think this guy's playing this year.
I would be very surprised to see this guy suit up this year. I really would. The relationship issues between him and the management of that team are just in shambles right now. So I would be very surprised to see him go out there and play. But Chris obviously was feeling a little bit frisky and wanted to take the stab at it. So he'll be taking up an IR spot for a little while.
Yeah, some I don't even think you can. I don't know if you can put him on. Yeah, he is out, but
Yeah, you can put him on. You should be able to put him on.
yeah, because he's on the pup list because he was hurt. But yeah, I think this is a good team though. I wanted Justin Fields and he got nabbed right the pick before me. So
I think like from quarterback to wide receiver 2 is a solid core.
Yeah.
Like Nkoju and Mike Williams. Like I said, I wasn't super high on. I mean, either. I don't think anyone was super high on Njoku, but I wasn't high on Mike Williams, so I don't love those picks. But I could obviously be wrong. I mean, that Chargers offense is great. I have Justin Herbert, so I'd love to see Mike Williams have a great year. But yeah, I like this team. And he got a great depth pick, in my opinion, with Roschon Johnson. I think by week like 5 or 6, he's going to be carrying the ball a lot. But yeah, I like the squad here. I think Chris has set himself up to make a pretty decent season out of this.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see how this goes. We'll see. Just another bad thing about the 2 running backs here are just they're on bad offenses. I don't think the Raiders are going to be that good. I don't think Atlanta's going to be that good. So they might be throwing more towards the end of the game, but we'll see. The Raiders were just as bad as last year, and he was the number 1 running back, so that could possibly not matter to Josh Jacobs, but something to keep an eye on with those 2 running backs. We'll skip Ryan's team for now. We'll do his last. Let's go over to Rudy's division, and we will start with Johnny. And I think Johnny has what feels like a complete team on paper. His starting lineup feels like he has some pretty good value on each of his positions. I wasn't really high on his running backs, but they are starting running backs. I know I have Kenneth Walker's handcuff. I think Charbonnet is going to be really involved in that offense. That doesn't mean Kenneth Walker is going to be a bust, but I think Charbonnet is just going to have a hand in that. But I think this is a good team. Tyreek Hill, I really wanted him this year. I knew with the 8th pick he wasn't gonna drop to me, but he's got the best quarterback in the league with Patrick Mahomes. And the X factor I think of this team is going to be Javonte Williams. I think if he just comes out the gate running, he had his ACL, MCL surgery a little earlier than Breece Hall, so he should be more close to 100% at the start of the season. So I really like that pick. I was kind of hunting for him, but once I got Breece Hall, I was not touching him because I did not want 2 guys with bad knees on my team. But I really like that pick.
Yeah, the Javonte Williams pick?
I do, yeah. I really wanted him as a flex or a bench spot for me, my team at least.
Yeah, I think similar to Breece Hall, there's going to be a lot of just question marks around how he's going to bounce back from that injury. I mean, we saw some good flashes of Javonte Williams last year, but this is basically his backfield now. I think they have Samaje Perine now as the backup, but I don't expect him to cut into the workload too much unless they're trying to ease Javonte back in because of the injury rehab, trying to kind of acclimate him slowly back into the offense. But I do think it's kind of a boomer bust potential there with that flex pick. And I kind of tend to agree with you on his running backs here. I wasn't super in love with those 2 guys, but they are both starting running backs. I think health is going to be a big factor for Kenneth Walker. Can he stay healthy all year with Zach Charbonnet on his tail? That's going to be an interesting offense to watch or interesting backfield rather to watch unfold. But I do think Alexander Mattison, I mean, when Dalvin Cook went down, over the past couple of years, Alexander Mattison would step in and have some pretty solid fill-in weeks. So seeing him as a starter this year, I think I think he has potential to be really good, but we'll see how he can carry that type of volume. But then other than that, I guess George Kittle is kind of a boomer bust tight end a little bit too, because they use him so much in blocking schemes. It's like, how many targets is he going to get? But, I mean, we've obviously all seen George Kittle have phenomenal games and phenomenal seasons. So I don't hate that pick at all. And obviously you can't go wrong with Patty Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. And DK Metcalf's solid pick. I think Johnny's had him 7 years in a row. So
yeah, I
definitely love that guy.
I texted Johnny every year he's been in this league, which I think has been 3 or 4 years. he's had DK Metcalf on his team. So he does love DK Metcalf. No matter where he is on the draft board, he's getting picked. But I really like the bench RB too. AJ Dillon's a really good fourth RB on this team. I think he's a really good fill-in for Javonte Williams. If Javonte Williams has a couple 2 or 3 weeks ramped up, I think AJ Dillon fills that void very well. And then I was really high on Michael Gallup this year. I wanted him. I think he got picked around right before, or the Johnny picked before me. I really wanted him as like one of my end wide receivers. I think him and Brandon Cooks I think that's a scary trio in Dallas. I think Dak's going to have a lot of good throwing options with those three. And Gallup's actually healthy this year. He was hurt last year, so I think Gallup will have a sneaky good year for Dallas and Johnny this year.
I don't know. See, I was actually higher on Brandon Cooks than either. I wasn't gunning to get CeeDee Lamb either because, like you said, there's some mouths to feed in there, and then you got Tony Pollard who catches a lot of passes too. So a lot of targets going around that whole team. But I think Brandon Cooks, kind of similar to what you said about Michael Gallup, I think Brandon Cooks is going to have a sneaky good year this year.
Yeah, I was going to be happy with both of them. I didn't end up with any of them, but I wouldn't mind either of them. I think Nick got Cooks. But yeah, I like that. Those two are going to be pretty good. I don't know how it's going to cut into CD's targets, but I think that offense is going to be a lot better than last year, at least.
Oh,
and
100%. Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, so we'll go to the best team last year statistically with the record and points. Just didn't finish the year out as a champion. It's going to be Rudy's team. And he did a little different strategy this year. Last year, if you remember, Rudy went heavy tight end with Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews. And this year he went, I don't even know if Cole Kmet's going to be a top 12 tight end this year, but he went a totally different strategy. But the rest of his team looks really good. I love the running backs. I love Nick Chubb. I was hoping Nick Chubb was going to send to me at 17. I knew he wasn't, but I really like Nick Chubb without Kareem Hunt in that backfield. I think he's going to catch a lot of passes. I think, hot take, I would have chose Nick Chubb instead of Derrick Henry at 10 if I was Jeff.
Yeah, I may have done the same. I was pretty high on Nick Chubb, and I was actually really high on Saquon this year. But when I got second pick, I knew that just wasn't going to work out. But I did like Saquon this year, and Chubb, I think, is, like you said, I think he's going to have a really good year. Cole Kmet is easily going to finish as a top 12 tight end, just to circle back on that point. And we had talked about this on draft night. I'm pretty high on the Steelers offense this year. I think they're going to take a pretty big step forward. I really liked Deontay Johnson, but I think George Pickens is going to be a great pick. He's in year 2 now with Kenny Pickett also in year 2. I think that's going to be a solid offense. A lot of catches going around to Deontay Johnson and George Pickens. So, yeah, I mean, Rudy's with the exception. I mean, Dameon Pierce, I don't know. He's just one of those guys that just wasn't like a super sexy pick, but I do think he's pretty much the guy in Houston. I mean, Devin Singletary's might cut in a little bit, but I wouldn't be too worried about that. I'm sure Dameon Pierce is going to have a fine season if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, I mean, the wide receivers are what's going to take this guy to elite status. Drake London, I don't know how much they're going to be throwing. He didn't have a great year last year, but he had an all right rookie season. He's just looking for that year 2 leap, and pretty much the same as George Pickens, as you said. So if those two take a big step, this team, I mean, the running backs are there. Lamar Jackson, if he stays healthy, he's a top 5 quarterback just because of his legs. This team is pretty scary, I think. It doesn't look scary right now, but if those wide receivers take a step, like I said, this team could be one of the best in the league.
Yeah, I like this team. We always give Rudy shit every year because it used to be one of the worst teams in the league. But obviously last year, complete opposite, went to the ship, didn't quite win, but had the best team statistically. And I think he's followed that up with a pretty solid draft here. Yeah,
I agree. And his bench doesn't look great. I mean, I like DeAndre Swift pick at where he was being drafted just as like a thrower, a backup running back on one of the better offenses in the league. I don't think DeAndre Swift is going to do that well, but you never know. He was a top 10 pick last year. I think you picked him at maybe 11th pick. So the pedigree is there.
Bust.
he was a bust, but the pedigree is there. He's got the talent. You never know what could happen. He was an 8th round flyer, I think, because that's when I was looking at him in the 8th round. Yeah, so yeah, I was looking at him at the 8th round. Rudy got him in the 7th round. I'm not crazy about Odell Beckham. I don't think he does anything with the Ravens. That's probably one of the worst spots he could go to. I don't know why he went there, but it is what it is. And then he's got 2 quarterbacks on the bench with Lamar Jackson. I guess that's kind of smart depending on, or given his injury history. But it's a good team. I like Rudy's team a lot. The more I look at it, the more I like it. So we'll see how Rudy does this year.
I like the Quentin Johnson pick. I think he's going to have a pretty decent year in that Chargers offense. I think he's coming out the gates as wide receiver 3, and they don't really have – I mean, Austin Eckler is obviously a big pass catcher, but I think there's definitely some room for Johnson to have a pretty decent year.
Yeah, the only reason I grabbed Zay Flowers instead of Quentin Johnson is because right now Quentin Johnston is the wide receiver 4 on that team. I bet he passes Josh Palmer pretty quickly, but
I think so. I don't
right
think
now
that's
it's
gonna...
just I think Zay has the better opportunity. But the Chargers are going to throw more, so we'll see how that goes, see how that pick turns out. But right now we'll go to Chewy's team. Chewy is another one who just always has a solid team year in and year out. What do you think about this team?
You know, I like this team. I feel like I've said that about pretty much every team. I think this is another solid team. You alluded to it earlier. He's got a crazy wide receiver duo here, assuming that Cooper Kupp comes back from this injury and plays like himself. And then Mike Evans, too, assuming he signs a deal and actually plays and doesn't just sit out. He's got a pretty solid wide receiver core here. The running backs, not the greatest. I wasn't big on Miles Sanders, and I wasn't really on Ramondre Stevenson either. With Zeke in that backfield now, I don't know how that's going to split up. I'm sure Ramondre is still going to get pretty much all the passing work and most of the running work, but Zeke's going to at least eat into some of those carries, probably get some goal line work. So I wasn't super high on that guy or Miles Sanders. But other than that, I think this is a really solid team. And obviously, you can't go wrong with Josh Allen. Probably going to be the best quarterback this year if he can stay healthy and that elbow doesn't bother him. Elbow, right? Or was it shoulder?
It was elbow, yeah.
Yeah. So as long as all that's in the past, Josh Allen, obviously a favorite for QB 1 or 2 in the whole league. So I do happen to like this team. Those running back spots, a little shaky, but everything else. What do you think?
Yeah, this team has a lot of boomer bust potential, especially with Cooper Kupp. Mike Evans again, Jerry Jeudy's again with injury history. These guys just need to stay healthy.
A lot of cues on this one.
Devontae Adams is 32, 31, 33 somewhere. He's getting up there in age. It doesn't mean he's going to have a bad year, but injuries could kind of go up there with older wide receivers. So it's very boomer bust. I don't think I would have touched Cooper Kupp till the 3rd round. I was probably lower than most people. That hamstring. Hamstrings are tough. Hamstrings are a tough muscle to get healthy, especially right before an NFL season. You're exploding so often on that leg. That's just a tough injury to get 100%, especially during the season. In the off season, it's probably a little easier, but during the season, I feel like that's going to be really tough for Cooper Kupp. I hope he gets 100%. I want to see him do good. I think he has wide receiver 1 potential. He just needs to stay healthy.
Yeah, I actually was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about how hamstring injuries are like the biggest injuries that have recurrence. Like after you have one, that's like the injury that's the most likely to happen again once you start with the hamstring snowball.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Hopefully he gets 100%. I don't know what Miles Sanders' problem is, but he's questionable. Mike Evans, I think that's maybe just contract dispute. He might be having a little injury too. But Jerry Jeudy is I think that's another hamstring, isn't it?
His was I know it was a leg. It was either, I think, hamstring or quad.
Hamstring.
Yeah, hamstring. Yeah, and I'm not sure how long he's going to be out. He's probably looking at least 3 or 4 week absence on Jerry Jeudy. So, I mean, obviously that's a great wide receiver to have when he's back if he's healthy. So he's got some depth here at the wide receiver position too. But yeah, it looks like he's good. But yeah, that Jared Judy pick, I don't know. It's just going to depend to see how that rehab goes for him because I don't know. I don't think anybody knows exactly how long he's going to be out yet.
Yeah, so we'll see. This is a really boom or bust team. I think this team could be a top 4 team, or this team could be a bottom 2 team. Honestly, it depends on how this season turns out for Chewy. I mean, you could say that about anybody's team, but this team especially, I feel like.
Yeah, there's a lot of injury concern here. Just a lot of cues on that listed on that team.
I agree. So we'll go to James's team, Green Gang. This guy went. I think he had a plan, and he made sure he executed that plan with that Aaron Rodgers pick in the 6th round. I don't know. I think he could have got him in the 8th, maybe the 9th round. I don't know. Maybe Jimmy would have stole him. I don't know how big Jimmy is on Aaron Rodgers this year with him being a New York Jets. But that was a huge reach, probably the biggest reach of the draft. But I think he got his man because he had Garrett Wilson as the 13th pick the first pick of the 2nd round, which is the 13th pick. So I think he had a plan. He wanted that stack, which another stack. I think this is like the 6th stack we've seen, 5th. I think the 5th, but then Lubasi is going to be the 6th stack. I like this team. I'm actually higher on this team than I thought I would be after looking at it. I love Tony Pollard this year. I think he's going to just go crazy in that offense. I'm really high on the Cowboys, I guess, because I would have drafted CeeDee Lamb too. But I think Aaron Rodgers has a comeback year with Garrett Wilson. I think all this offseason I've been hearing Garrett Wilson's the new Devontae Adams, and Aaron Rodgers is just going to feed Wilson. I know he's got a couple buddies like Randall Cobb and Lazard there, but Garrett Wilson is definitely the top wide receiver on that team, and Aaron Rodgers is definitely going to feed him. I don't know if I love the DJ Moore pick. I know he reached for that DJ Moore pick. I think there's a couple more wide receivers he could have picked. But if you're high on the Bears offense, DJ Moore is going to be very good if Justin Fields is actually throwing the ball and not running it. So we'll see. But I don't love the Cam Akers, but he is a starting running back. There's no competition in that backfield other than Cam Akers and then Kyron Williams, but he didn't have that good of a year last year with the touches he's got. I don't know. The more I look at it, the more I like the team. And seeing how – I don't want to say how well he drafted, but how reached he did with a lot of these guys, I still like this team. What about you?
No, I like this team a lot too. I was pretty high on Rachaad White this year, so I think him and Tony Pollard as RB1 and 2, that's really good. And I was really high on Garrett Wilson, like everybody in the world was. So him at wide receiver 1 with the Aaron Rodgers stack, I think that's going to play out really well. Obviously, biased opinion, but I think DJ Moore is going to have a great year. I think to agree with you, I think the worst spot on this team is that flex right now with Cam Akers. I just think that Rams offense is going to be dog shit. But I mean, volume is volume, and he could still get a couple touchdowns here and there, and he's probably going to get 25 plus carries a game, and he's got the handcuff on his bench too. So it may work out. He's got a couple other guys down there on the bench he could plug into that flex spot at any time. So yeah, I think James did a heck of a draft here. I think he's got one of the lowest week 1 projections, but I don't think that's going to reflect how this team's going to play because I think this one's pretty solid.
Yeah, DJ Moore was a 36th pick, third round. So he had the last 2 picks, and then he waited 24, kind of like you and Lubasi did, and he drafted DJ Moore and Rachaad White, I'm assuming. So that's not a bad turn. Yeah, 4th round. That's not a bad turn. Tony Pollard and get.
All right, sorry about that, guys. The video cut out on us. We only got a 40-minute time limit, so we're starting a new one, and we're just going to jump in right where we left off. You were talking here. We were finishing up James' team.
Yeah, so I was just going to say Tony Pollard and Garrett Wilson, great 1-2 punch, and Rachaad White, add that to the punch too. DJ Moore is a little question mark. We'll see how that Bears offense and that throwing offense is going to be, but like I said, I like this team. I think this team is going to do some damage in that division.
Yeah, yep, and I agree with that. I think James probably drafts here maybe one of the better teams we've seen from him in the past couple of years. So I do believe he had a pretty poor year last year too. So he's looking for a bounce back.
Yeah, and he's been talking a lot, so he wants to bounce back just as much as anyone.
Is James the one who hasn't been to the playoffs yet?
Yeah, but 2 years ago he had the best team in the league. Just he didn't make the playoffs. But yeah, he has not been to the playoffs.
Yeah, so he's really on the hunt. He needs to prove something this year, probably more to himself than to anyone else. But I think he's got a team that's set up to hopefully do that for him.
Yeah, so we'll go to Nick's team first. We'll go to Lubasi's next, since we'll have you and Lubasi's team last, just because that's going to be the matchup of the week. So we'll go to Nick's team. What are you thinking about this team?
About McTap in yo ass. I think it's a pretty good team. I mean, he's got Christian McCaffrey, so that's obviously, barring any injury, that's going to be a solid RB1. Wasn't super high on Aaron Jones. I don't think this is a biased opinion, but I think that Packers offense is going to be dick. Like, I don't think they're going to be good at all. So I was not very high on Aaron Jones. Plus, he's sharing that backfield with A.J. Dillon, who steals a lot of goal line carries and a lot of carries in general, really. So I don't love Aaron Jones. Jalen Waddle, questionable. He's dealing with some injury stuff. I talked about it earlier, but I'm pretty high on that Steelers offense. So I love the Deontay Johnson pick. I actually really wanted Tyler Lockett too, but he got him before me, before I could get him. And also Brandon Cooks on the bench. Funny enough, I drafted Christian Kirk. Could have had Brandon Cook. I was debating between those guys like for my whole pick, like the whole 90 seconds of that pick. Went Christian Kirk and immediately realized that I already had Travis Etienne and was so mad that I didn't get Brandon Cooks instead. So I do really like that pick too. I think Brandon Cooks, like I said earlier, is going to have a sneaky good season this year. So I think Nick's team is good, not great, but I don't hate it. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think with you look at Aaron Jones, he's going to get all the passing receptions, and he's getting, it looks about 3-4 catches a game. So
that's with Aaron Rodgers, though.
Yeah, well, you think Jordan Love might dump it out more because he's just a worse quarterback.
But he might miss. He might not get it to him, even out of the backfield.
I guess we'll see. But you'd think worse quarterbacks dump it off to running backs more. I mean, I didn't love Aaron Jones this year, but I didn't hate him. I think he'll have a okay year. I think he's going to probably place where his ADP is, third round, maybe a little worse than that. I was really high on Jalen Waddle. I knew if I had one of the top 4 or 5 picks that I would have got Jalen Waddle's my second round pick. I was really high on him. And I don't love the Steelers offense like you, and I really don't like TJ Hawkinson, even though he did really well in Minnesota when he got traded. But I think Nick's team is one of the teams I probably dislike the most. Not saying it's a bad team. I'm pretty much in agreement with you. I think everyone has a solid team. But I think this is the team that I would put lower in my tier list, with the exception of Jalen Waddle and Christian McCaffrey. I'm not in love with any more of his starters other than those two.
Yeah, I wasn't. I don't think. I mean, Nick's obviously a big Cowboys fan, so he's probably really high on Dak Prescott, but I don't know that he's going to have the greatest year. I think those receivers are going to be good in spite of Dak maybe not doing super well. But back on the Aaron Jones, compounding the fact that he shares the backfield, the offense is going to be shit, and he's getting up there in age too. I mean, he's been around the league for a while. I don't know. I don't think he's going to have a great year, but I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. There's definitely a possibility of that. And I don't think this team is super deep. He's got some pieces on the bench. I think Brian Robinson, Brandon Cooks, obviously the best two down there. But other than that, I mean, not a ton of depth that you're excited about if you have to plug them in at any time.
Yeah, he has really no upside on his bench. You think Damian Harris, really not an upside pick. Tyler Boyd, you've kind of seen what he's done in the Bengals for the last 4 or 5 years, and it's not much. Hunter Renfrow, I can't believe he was drafted. He had a terrible year last year. And then KJ Osborne is the third receiver in Minnesota, which, I mean, it could work, but Cousins likes Justin Jefferson. He's really like TJ Hawkinson. And you got Jordan Addison going to steal, a lot of the catches from KJ Osborne. So there's just not a lot of upside on the bench, which I love to see upside on the bench. especially in those last couple spots. I think he just kind of played it ultra safe, and I don't really agree with that strategy. But maybe that's what he wanted it to do, and that's what he did.
Yeah, a lot of low ceiling guys down there, and not really that high of floors either.
No, right.
I mean, there's you're really hoping for like maybe an injury or something to feel okay about plugging those guys in. But if anyone in his starting lineup gets hurt, I wouldn't feel great about plugging really any of those bench guys in. Like I said, with the exception of Cooks and Robinson. I mean, it's just, yeah, I don't know. I guess we don't know how Dalton Schultz is going to do in Houston, but I don't think that offense is going to be super good either.
Yeah, I mean, Bryce Young's going to have to find a blanket, and I think that's going to probably be who he goes to, just because tight ends are usually security blankets for young quarterbacks. But it's not enough volume to put him in maybe like a spot start. Like it is his second tight end. It's not like he's starting Dalton Schultz, but that's a pretty all right pick. It's just the four people below that have absolutely no upside. But this is an all right team. I'm a little lower on it. Ryan's a little higher on it than I am, but it's still a solid team in my opinion.
Yeah, I think good, just not great.
And that healthy C-Mac's going to be the difference for him. He's got to stay healthy.
If C-Mac goes down, this team is probably toast.
He's done so. All right, so we'll go to Lubasi's pick or Lubasi's team. I'll let you start off with Lubasi's team, and
I'm going to start out by saying how he immediately names his team after this draft. Let Danny cook, and then follows that up by benching Daniel Jones for Jared Goff. He said earlier, I did press him about this. He said he doesn't want to play any quarterback that's playing against Dallas. I guess he's really high on the Dallas defense, which they're good. I mean, Micah Parsons is pretty good, but I don't think they're as scary to like not play your QB that you drafted and named your team after for. But you know what? That's just me. On to the rest. Najee Harris. I was talking how I'm high on the Steelers offense, but not really the Steelers run game. I was not super high on Najee Harris coming in just because I think Kenny Pickett's going to take a step forward this year in that offense. I think they're going to try and open up the passing game a lot. Obviously, they have Najee. They drafted Najee. He's going to be a piece of this. I just don't know how well he's going to do in that offense or how much they're going to want to run versus pass because they just have so much talent in the passing game now. James Cook, I was pretty high on James Cook coming into the season. He's taken over the lead duties in Buffalo in that backfield, and obviously that's one of the best offenses in the league. So I do like the James Cook pick. His receivers are really solid. Darren Waller was a tight end that I was looking at. If I didn't get one of the top guys, I think a lot of people are pretty high on him in a new team, new offense, and probably just going to eat a lot of targets just because the Giants don't have a ton of great pass catchers. So, I mean, pretty solid there. Khalil Herbert, I mean, I would love to see him have a great season, but there's just so many mouths to feed now in that Chicago backfield. I don't know how they're going to split up all the work. I mean, they didn't sign Deontay Foreman for nothing. We also drafted Roschon Johnson. We got Khalil Herbert. Justin Fields runs all the time. We're going to be trying to pass more because we got better pass catchers. So I just don't know how much opportunity is going to be there for Khalil. I believe the Roto draft analysis called this the worst team. I don't know that I view it as the worst, but I do think just because so many of the other teams we've looked at today are just really solid, I do think this probably falls closer to the bottom tier of teams. But as much shit as I talk, I do still think it's a solid team. He does have two really good receivers. And like I said, I do like the Darren Waller pick. And I think James Cook has potential to have a pretty good season in Buffalo too.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I don't love his running backs, Najee. I mean, for the league winner for Lubasi, I did type, is he the new Josh Jacobs or the old, last year's Josh Jacobs? Nobody really wanted him. You got Jalen Warren sneaking carries from him. I think it's a possibility. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's what Lubasi's hoping it's going to happen. And James Cook, a lot of hype. I saw a lot of hype on him. I wasn't buying into it. Josh Allen is still going to throw the ball. He's going to throw the ball a lot. They rarely run. And if they do run, Josh Allen gets a lot of carries and goal line work. I think that's not a great RB2, but it's a starting running back. Hopefully he gets a more volume than I'm saying he does. But I do love Justin Jefferson and Calvin Ridley. I really wanted Calvin Ridley this year. Lubasi, got him in a little earlier than my third pick because I had to wait for the third pick. I had Keenan Allen as my backup, which I got, so that actually worked out all right for me. But Calvin Ridley looked really good in the preseason. I know we haven't seen him play in, 2 years, but that guy was just a stud when he was playing. I think he was a top 5 receiver until he got busted. Actually, I think he had some personal reasons he left and then he got busted for betting.
Yeah, he's been out for a year and 3 quarters.
Yeah, but he just looked electric in the preseason. I think he's going to just pick up from where he left off. And like you said, Darren Waller, I was high on him. I knew somebody was going to reach for me not to get him because I wasn't going to spend too much draft capital on him. But it's a good tight end. I like the team. 49ers defense, best defense, ranked defense. He got those guys. I like the team. Justin Jefferson, any team with Justin Jefferson is going to be a good team. The quarterback's probably the scariest position for him. Daniel Jones, Jared Goff, Anthony Richardson. He probably is going to just throw one in the starting lineup and just hope he's right. But
yeah, I think depth is going to be a problem for him here. I don't love this bench. I mean, first of all, he's got 3 quarterbacks already. We already saw that from Rudy, and we didn't love Rudy's depth either. But I just kind of similar to Nick's team. I just don't see a ton of upside on the bench here. Gabe Davis maybe, but he's kind of shaky. There's just a lot going on in that Buffalo offense. And is he really going to want to start James Cook and Gabe Davis? Probably not. I mean, those aren't two, I wouldn't call them focal points of the offense. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't love the bench here, and that might be why his grade got so low that he was ranked the worst team, was the depth. But if his full starting lineup stays healthy all year, I mean, obviously he's got as good a shot as probably anybody. I think he's definitely got the pieces to make it happen, unless his quarterback position just completely busts, which is not out of the realm of possibility.
Right. And then even his running back that he's got on the bench is not really a high ceiling guy. Even when he had a lot of carries last year after C-Mac got traded, he wasn't doing much with them, and that's the reason why they got Miles Sanders. So Hubbard isn't really a lead back. He's more of a complementary back, and even if Miles Sanders gets hurt, I don't see Chuba. They're probably going to go get someone like a Kareem Hunt or somebody like that if that's the case, because he didn't do that well with the carries that he got. So that's another. I mean, one running back on the bench, and that's your running back. I don't love that upside. But his flex is a running back, so you really only need 2 starting running backs at most, or at least week in and week out. So, but I agree with you. The bench, I do like Brandon Ayuk this year. I've liked him the last 3 years. I think I've had him for the past 2 years, and he's a solid guy. He'll get you, 5 catches, 60 yards, and hopefully a touchdown. And if Debo keeps descending, Ayuk's going to ascend to that number 1 receiver, and he's a really good route runner. So we'll see how that goes. But
that was what everyone was saying last year, and I don't feel like he had a wide receiver 1 type campaign.
I mean, he was a 15th wide receiver last year.
I guess that's wide receiver 2, but I guess that's not too far off from wide receiver 1.
Well, I'm saying, yeah, he'll keep ascending. Debo keeps descending. That's an easy wide receiver 1 for the 49ers and probably fantasy, too.
I don't think Debo is going to descend. I don't know why you hate Debo so much, but I think he's going to be significantly better than Ayuk this year.
I would probably go Ayuk. Where these guys were drafted, I would pick Ayuk over Debo 100% of the time.
Well, if you consider, I guess, the draft position, that's a whole different conversation. I was just making a blanket statement that I think Debo finishes at a higher position rank than Ayuk this year, for sure.
Well, depending on injuries, I'd probably go Ayuk. If they stay healthy 17 games, I think Ayuk might beat him again this year, even though Debo wasn't healthy all 17 games last year.
No, not even close.
But all right, well, we saved the best storyline for last. We'll go to Ryan's team, and I'm sure everyone has heard the news that the second pick of our fantasy draft has hyperextended his knee. The early signs is that the ACL and MCL, PCL, every ligament is still intact in his knee, but it's still swelled up a lot. It's bruised. So I doubt he plays tomorrow. I've read on Twitter about 2 to 4 weeks if it's less severe. You're hoping 2 weeks, of course. You're hoping actually just this week. But how are you feeling about your first pick, which was the second pick of this draft, and getting that news today? Tell me what you're feeling.
I'm not gonna lie to you, it ruined a good portion of my day today. I was feeling really good all day until I heard that news. I was even talking, me and Lubasi were talking shit back and forth about our matchup. And immediately, as soon as I got that text, I just went into full depression mode. Like, next year, we're setting our draft for Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m., right before the first game, because this is probably about as bad luck gets. I reached a little bit for Kelsey on that number 2 pick. I mean, not really, because there was no way. I was either getting him or I wasn't. But I draft him at number 2, and he gets injured 3 days before the first game, or 2 days before the first game. Like, what the absolute fuck? What the absolute fuck? Why tell me this? Why is he even out there doing full practice, like full reps? This guy should be walking the sidelines with no pads on 2 days before the game. What else are they going to teach him in practice that he doesn't already fucking know? He's been in the league for 7 or 8 years. Why is he out there running full pad practice 2 days before the first game? That's stupid as hell.
That's a great question. Did Jeff's text break the news, or did you see it before Jeff texted us?
No, Jeff's text broke the news. I had no
idea. Man, that's tough.
In the midst of me and Lubasi texting back and forth, Jeff slides that little fucking picture in to send the news, and like, it fucking deflated me. It really did. I was so down today for like 4 hours after hearing that. I just could not. I was like, what are the like? This is probably one of the better teams I've come out of the draft feeling like best I've felt in a couple of years coming out of the draft, and that happens. Like, what the fuck? I just flabbergasted, floored. What are you doing, Kansas City?
That's a tough hit for not only your fantasy team, but for the Kansas City Chiefs as well. I mean, I do like this team. I think this is, like you said, one of the better teams that you drafted. I was pretty high on Jahmyr Gibbs, and Travis Etienne, both the same. A lot of talk was with that Tank Bigsby guy, and he just looked really bad in preseason. So Travis Etienne should be the full go running back 1, and he's going to have a lot of pass catchers. I think what sets your running backs apart from a lot of the top running backs that we've seen is that your core is going to get a lot of catches. They've already talked about Jahmyr Gibbs lining up on the slot and doing all this stuff. So I think that's really what separates this core with other cores with the running backs. But I do have trouble, loving your wide receivers. Christian Watson, you just said like 10 minutes ago how you don't think the Packers offense is going to be good, and then you got their number 1 wide receiver. So
I did not want him. I really did not. But like we also talked about on draft day, I did not make a do not draft list. I was letting the board come to me. Yep. I didn't want second pick either. I really didn't want second pick. But I just ended up in a spot there where I needed a receiver. He was pretty much the best one on the board at the time as far as the tier of receivers that were there. I don't love that pick, but I'm just going to have to hope that we see some flashes of the Christian Watson from last year, even though he doesn't have a good quarterback throwing to him. Right. A lot of the catches and touchdowns that he got last year were deep balls, and I'm not sure that Jordan Love can make those throws. But I'm just going to have to hope and pray. And then, as I talked about earlier, the Christian Kirk pick was just a complete brain fart on my end. I did not mean to end up with Travis Etienne and Christian Kirk. But Christian Kirk was like kind of like Christian Watson. He was the best receiver probably of the group that was there. I kept going back and forth between him and Brandon Cooks, and I ended up just time was running low, and I was starting to feel the pressure, and I went with Kirk, and then immediately was like, oh shit, what an idiot. But I do think, with all that said, I think Christian Kirk's still going to have a pretty good year. He's got Calvin Ridley there now, but I think that could be a good thing. Take a little attention away from him. Trevor Lawrence was looking for him a lot in the red zone last year, so hopefully that'll continue. I think Calvin Ridley might be more of an open field guy, so hopefully we'll get some good touchdown upside there, or maybe I'll use him as a trade piece. But yeah, that's probably my weakest spot is those receivers, but I do still think those are decent guys who are going to put up points for me and get catches at least. But if that's the worst part of my team, I'm fine with that because I like everything else a lot. I mean, the Kelsey thing is just an absolute fucking dick grinder, but we're just gonna have to deal with that. I'll have to pick up a tight end because my whole bench is just like upside potential guys that I wanted to grab, and I really like all those guys on the bench too. I don't even know who I would drop.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you're gonna have to get a tight end in there. Maybe
my hope is that
Kelsey,
I can put Kelsey on the
yeah.
IR before I have to pick somebody up, and then I won't have to drop anybody. Because I really do like my bench too. I think some of those guys down there, like Treylon Burks, I think is poised to have a pretty big leap forward this year. I've heard nothing but good things about Elijah Moore in Cleveland, about how much they love him, and he was really fed up. He had a really good year, I think 2 or 3 years ago in New York, and he just got real fed up with the organization. And I think I've been hearing that he's really happy in Cleveland, and that Deshaun Watson and the coaches all really like him. So I think he's going to be a sneaky pick. And then Marvin Mims is my rookie of the year candidate in a Broncos offense that has some very disappointing pass catchers like Cortland Sutton. And with Jerry Jeudy out, I think Mims could possibly make some noise early in the season. So I do like my upside on the bench just in case. But yeah, man, that Kelsey shit is just fucking brutal.
Yeah, and you got one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. I would say Justin Herbert. A lot of good things I've heard about him just with that new offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore. It's Kellen Moore, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's going to want to throw the ball. That's another reason why I got Keenan Allen. You know, they want to throw the ball. You're going to throw it to your best wide receiver, you would assume. And that's why I was pretty high on Keenan Allen this year. So, yeah, this is a good team. Hopefully Travis Kelce can come back quick. I think I play you week 4, so if week 5 would be a good date, at least for me, personal reasons. But it doesn't sound terrible, but you never know what they can find.
Yeah, I heard he walked off on his own power off the field today, so that gives me a little. I mean, he's probably out for Thursday, but that is what it is. Lubasi's gonna catch a nice break there. But yeah, and we were arguing too about my receivers being bad, and I was like, well, I have a wide receiver 1 in my tight end spot, and then that literally 5 minutes later went away right after I said that. Like, oh my God. I got a bone to pick with the Chiefs, dude. I'm about to call up the GM and be like, what the fuck are you guys doing? This guy does not need to be on the practice field 2 days before a game.
Yeah, that is weird, but I know Breece Hall didn't practice yesterday, so they're keeping him fresh. They should have done that with Kelsey.
Yeah, unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. Just like I said, it's about as bad luck gets right there.
All right, so yeah, here's the scoreboard. Last time we're going to see these till there's actually points on the board. I got Jimmy this week, Rudy and Jeff, which is our highlight of the week with the 2 championships, or the championship game last year. Then you got Dom and Chris, which is a really high-scoring game. I think one of the higher-scoring games for the pair. Then we got Lubasi and Ryan, good rivalry there. All right, never mind. Johnny and Chewy are definitely the most high-scoring game. That's going to be a really good game to look for. It's going to be interesting to see if Cooper Kupp plays. I don't think he's going to play, so Chewy's going to have to find another wide receiver in that spot. But those are the games this – oh, no, and then we got James and Nick. I almost forgot. So those are the games this week. And I'm excited. I'm excited for tomorrow, or no, Thursday. I'm excited for Thursday, and I'm also very excited for Sunday.
I'm a lot less excited for Thursday. I mean, I can't wait to see what Jahmyr Gibbs does, but certainly my hopes aren't as high as they were about 24 hours ago.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That's just gut wrenching what happened.
Yeah.
I would be broken as well. I would be so mad.
My afternoon today was absolutely shot. It was just depressing. I couldn't even believe it. I was cursing out the Chiefs organization for like 2 hours.
It's just and you had you could have picked so many other people, and this year you
Yeah, exactly.
Travis, and
So many people. When have we ever seen somebody of that caliber get hurt like a day or two before game
Oh
one?
man,
I don't know if it's ever happened. Probably because most people don't fucking have him out there running full pad practice.
Yeah.
Like, it's a veteran. It's a veteran. I understand if you want to get the rookie, they got to learn the playbook and the game plan and everything. This guy has been on this team for 7+ years. He does not need to be in this particular practice these 2 days before the game. Come on.
Yeah, we've definitely never seen like a new injury like this pop up like a week before. Yeah,
Crazy.
It's terrible.
Absolutely.
I hope he gets better for you though.
Yeah, me too. But it is what it is. We'll figure it out over here in Old Town. Bossy might catch a dub on me the first week, but that's all right. We'll bounce back.
Yeah, hopefully I'll get the dub on Jimmy. I need to go 2-2 at least for the first 4 weeks until Brees gets something. But that's what I'm aiming for, 2-2.
Yep. At this point now, I'm hoping for like a 1-1. If I could split the first 2 games, if Kelsey doesn't play the first 2 weeks and I can split those some way, like,
that's a win.
Perfect.
That's a win.
All right. Well, I think that does it, boys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this podcast. I know it's going to be incredibly long. I will try and timestamp it, but I never done that, so I don't know how that's going to go. But I will try. Otherwise, you're just going to have to skip forward and hope you find your team.
Yeah.
But please leave comments or put a Facebook post out. Let us know what you think of our analysis of all the teams and how you feel about your team heading into week 1. You got. Oh. All right. Peace.